Well, hello there. My name is Joe. And as a guitar player, felt like I had a need for a quality instrument, but I couldn't find anything out there with all the exact parts I wanted. So I decided to build it myself. With the Stratocaster style, with some couple of modifications. Well, this is the final product right here. I was going for a natural and gold sort of theme. Absolutely gorgeous. So we'll dive right in. Here are the parts. These are the finishing products. This is the grain filler, which is a little darker than the wood. This is the nitrocellulose lacquer that I used. This is the high velocity, low pressure spray gun I used. I used a standard 15-gallon air compressor along with it. This is some spray masks, some respiratory masks to help with the spraying process. This is some polishing compounds. We got some copper tape for the electronics. The tremolo assembly, which has all these little bits. I got the tremolo, the bridge, the arm, some spring screws and all that. And got the Bocote locking adjustable height tuners. I got the neck pickup here, the Lindy Fralin single coil hot vintage in black. This is the bridge pickup, which is a Dimarzio Bluesbucker with coil splitting capabilities. This is a middle pickup, a Telecaster generic pickup. Here's some of the potentiometers and knobs I used in the selector switch. The output jack plate, some screws, a higher quality gold output jack, Schaller strap locks in gold, the neck plate, officially by Fender, in gold, and some black tips for the trim arm. Official Fender product. Genuine Fender LSR roller nut. Some bushings for the pickup installation instead of using the springs. And this is the body. Bare wood. I got it from Warmoth. I got a swamp ash Stratocaster. It eventually changes color a bit. This is a close-up here of some of the grain pattern. I like the stripes in it. I'm going for a natural finish. I'm not going to be putting too much of this grain filler. This was just to add a bit of depth, a little bit of color into the grain. This wood being fairly grainy and porous, there's room for this darker color to kind of get in there to give it a little color. I'm going to use the card here to push it in, work it into the little crevices. Let's use my hands too, but I was fairly selective with where I put the grain filler. I didn't want to cover the entire guitar with it. Just kind of wanted to accent various parts of it. And it's just a matter of letting it dry and sanding it off. And to get in there nice and close, you can see that's once you sand it off. You can see the grains are a little darker. So it adds a little pop to it. Yeah, again, I just did it in a couple spots just to add a little depth to it. And the grain filler, for some reason, it seemed like it added a bit of this reddish color, but it didn't end up turning out too red. And this is the neck. I got Bocote fingerboard, this absolutely beautiful grain pattern in it. Also from Warmoth, along with the bird's eye maple neck wood, no finish, and some gold frets, sort of a medium jumbo size. And this is preparing for the finishing on the back part of the neck. Just wanted to cover the fretboard so I don't get any lacquer on the fretboard or the frets at all. Covered this pocket here. This is where it sits in the body of the guitar, the neck pocket. I didn't want any lacquer there. Just wanted the bare wood to touch the bare wood so the vibrations transfer perfectly. Supreme vibration transfer. And this is before the spraying process. I just a nice cover on the top of the fretboard so it doesn't get lacquer on it. And this is how I covered the holes for the tuners, so there was no lacquer on the inside. It did kind of crust up once the lacquer dried. It was a little tough taking the cotton out, but it worked. This is how I hung the body, the old-fashioned clothes hanger. Just hung it up like that. Sort of jerry-rigged it, but it works. This is some of the spraying. This was some of the strongest smelling flammable stuff I've ever smelled. It was pretty intense. So the respirators totally helped. So there's a decent amount of trial and error here with the spraying process. I initially did a fairly thin coat. Sort of kept the sprayer like maybe 8 to 10 inches from it. Did one sort of layer over it. Let it dry for like 30 seconds. Did another one, and then did another one. Counted that as a layer. That was after that first sort of layer. You can see a little buildup on near the neck pocket. That wasn't desired, but you sand it out. Here's another spot similar to that. It built up and kind of drooped. That just involved sanding it down a bit. And this shows the orange peel look that happens with the spraying. There's another little droop right there in the middle. I just had to level it out with sanding. And there's the orange peel's pretty obvious there. It looks pretty cool. I like it. And this is what I did between layers. You can see how it's all scuffed up right there. You sort of scuff it up with a light sandpaper to make sure the next layer of lacquer sticks to it. This was after a couple more layers. Sort of, you get the shine. Lacquer starts to build up. You get the reflective quality there. It still has the orange peel. You can still see the grain. It's all things I wanted. Nice long shot there of the grain and the orange peel. It's getting shinier. And I kept getting a couple of droopy spots like that, and these solidified little bubbles, tiny little bumps. I had to sand those flat too. This was a bigger little droop on the bottom, just collected and solidified, but again, just sand it out and works fine. There's a sharp angle there if it's getting super shiny. This is how it looked after the final layer of lacquer. This is after all the spraying was done. Super shiny. Okay, here I scored the edge of the tape, so when I removed it, didn't tear the lacquer or disturb it in any way. I kept the lines sharp and just removed the tape. Doing the same thing here with the neck. And you can see on there, right on the edge, there's a little bit of like a white buildup from the lacquer. That I essentially had to remove too. You can see right here. My old man thumbs. Wrinkly. But yeah, the little flakes. I was sort of gentle with it. Getting that off. I didn't want to ruin the lacquer. So I used a little file. Did it gently. Gently and gingerly. Yeah, so I did that on every fret. Made a clean edge. And the same thing here with the cotton in the tuner holes. Just score the edge to make it easier to come out, but as you can see, it didn't really come out too easily. It was kind of a bitch taking it all out, but better than having lacquer on the inside. And then these little plug holes for the bridge screws. Sort of same thing, just to get no lacquer on the inside. And then removing this over the neck pocket. And this had a similar thing with the little flaky lacquered chunks. And just file them off. Get a nice clean edge. Alright, and this is how the lacquer looks before polishing. I let it sit for essentially a week before I started polishing, just to let it kind of do its natural drying process. And this is the polishing. This was absolutely the most tedious part of it. It was agonizing. But this is just to show in between polishing compounds. You just lather it on, you scrub it on. There you go. You just rub it in until it dries off. Kind of dries up and gets all goopy. And then wipe it off, and you keep doing it with progressively finer grits. And you're scoring it a little bit with sandpaper in between each polishing layer. And you just keep doing it. I ended up doing the whole thing by hand. It was just much more efficient. And this specifically right here was the first test pot I did, and ended up turning. It's got super shiny, way shinier. Practically mirror finish there, just on the first chunk I tried. And this is just to show the headstock. With at this point it was still the rougher grit polishing. You can still see some of the micro scratches in there. You don't get it. You lose the orange peel at this point, and it gets pretty shiny, but not completely mirror finish and flat. You can see some of the grain sticking out there, starting to pop a little more. Alright, and this shot's to show what needs to be polished. It goes from shiny here to dull. That dull side needs to be polished out a bit more. And this shows it again too, that it gets dull near the cavity for the trem. Those are some spots visually you can see that still need to be polished. This is cutting some tape for the copper lining for the pickup electronics sort of cavity for some noise canceling. Just kind of trial and error. You just cut a bunch of pieces and fill it all in. Kind of make sure you have conductive adhesive. And another thing I made sure to have was a little lip going over the edge to make contact with the pickguard that has the copper foil on it. Just to complete the circuit and make sure it's all contacting each other and works as a circuit. And that's the little lip there around the whole entire perimeter. That's the finished product for the copper foil. There it is. I even put it in the output jack. And here, this is some of the bridge assembly. I just countersunk the holes a little bit just to prevent any cracking if it were to happen, just to enlarge the holes there to prevent cracking in the lacquer. And I lubed up all the screws I used in general just to make the threading process a little smoother. And this is the first screw. And I did this threading thing here where I go in and out with it just to make it really smooth. I feel like it helps. I don't want to hear any cracking or anything as I was doing it. So just go in and out, in and out. There's one thing with the bridge screws. They're slightly long and they poked out in the back here. But, oh well, looks cool. This is screwing in the trem claw with the springs. Super long screws and had a pretty sharp angle. It was a little tough doing it, but... Pop on the springs. I use 3.
Tell me, Pastor Leon, which way are we supposed to go?
Okay, and here's the installation of the output jack. You just simply put it down and screw some holes. I just kind of eyeballed it, and that's all there is to it. The tape is there just to kind of determine the depth of the hole. And it's just as simple as that. You just drill it and screw it. Okay, and here with the strap locks, I was a little more precise and measured a little bit just to make sure it's placed right. But still kind of eyeballing. Just drill the hole, screw it in, and just try to make sure it was as in the middle as possible. And then you just screw it in. There's a little felt bushing you put on it, but it's pretty straightforward. And the other strap lock pretty much goes the same way. This is the LSR nut. I got the neck from Warmoth with the nut slot cut to be able to fit this LSR nut. You just pop it in. These ferrules here with the tuners, they were a little tough. They were a little slightly big, so I had to be kind of rough with them. But this system here, wrapping a battery and smashing it down, and it seemed to work fine. And it was even more precise here with the tuners, making them straight, measuring it out. I put a little dot where the hole is supposed to be, and then just drilled it and screwed it again. Again here with the depth with the tape. Putting the screws in, a couple were very slightly crooked, not exactly up and down, but they fit in very strong, and it works perfectly. So you can see that last one's slightly crooked, but they all fit in straight. Okay, and this angle shows the adjusted height on the tuners, which helps reduce the vibration that it has up here on the headstock, so I don't need string trees. You can see the reflection there of the tuners. It's pretty shiny. Alright, and here's pretty big part. You join in the two halves, the neck and the body. Just pop it on. Fits like a glove. Throw the plate on, throw the screws in. Felt like a very final sort of step. Just screwing this all together. It actually looks like a guitar now. Did the old in out for these two to make sure the threading was good. and there you go. There's a good chunk of it assembled there. Enough to get the strings on at least. There you go. I got install the strings. And the point with getting the strings on is to at least let the guitar sit for a week or so with the tension of the strings and the springs all on each other, so the neck can sort of set in, kind of get used to all the tension. And here we go with the Pickguard. I decided with making a custom shape, not the standard Stratocaster shape. I wanted, man, the grain looks good and I wanted to not cover it up, so I took off this one horn there, drew a template, and cut off part of it. Alright, yeah, there you go. Kind of a rough edge. Took a couple different tools to soften that edge. Use the Dremel here a little bit. Ended up working a little easier with a file. Also to get the 45-degree angle, the beveled edge that the Pickguard has to match the rest of it. Ended up working best this way. And ended up using a fine sandpaper. Get it nice and smooth. You can see there the sharp angle. You can see the beveled edge sort of matches the rest of the Pickguard. It's like I got it straight from a shop. Custom shape. Look at that. Never seen before. One of a kind. Perfect. And this is some of the copper shielding for the Pickguard. You just slap on all you slap it on and cut out the holes. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward for that. Take off that protective layer. No need for protection anymore. And there we go. Just put it in place so I can gauge where the screw holes were going to be. And there you go again. With the depth meter, the tape. Again, kind of just eyeballed it and screwed all the holes. And now to some of the beginning steps of the electronics. Just pop on the potentiometers. You got 2 nuts for each of the potentiometers to adjust the height of them so they don't protrude too much. You gotta play with that. Installing one of the pickups here. Again, pretty simple process, using the rubber bushings as opposed to the springs. Just pop it in, screw it in. Okay, and here, because I wanted to go with the non-standard Telecaster pickup in the middle, which wasn't the right size. Thus, the installation screws weren't going to match up with the Strat. So I made these little tabs. 3D printed these tabs that'll fit onto the wings of the Telecaster pickup mounting tabs. Extended them a little bit. Built this in a 3D program and then got a file for the print. Used a MakerBot 3D printer and printed them up. Printed up 2 of them. Modified them a little bit, but there you go. And that's the 3D model of it. That's what it looked like. That's what it looked like as it was printing, and then that's what it came out as. There you go, 3D printing. First time using 3D printing. And I colored them black, because you can just to make it a little more hidden inside of the cavity. There you go, you just pop them right on. Essentially screwed through the plastic, threw some super glue on it. And you just pop them on. They worked perfectly. And this, one of them I had to shorten up a little bit. I shaved it down because it was too wide to fit. You can see that. But there you go. And screwed through it. And I won't call myself a genius, but, you know. Look at that. Alright, there you go. Completely custom pickguard right there. Absolutely customized. Alright, to some of the beginning steps of the soldering the electronics. I scored the back of the main volume pot. This is essentially the home for the ground, so all the ground wires will go here. This is for the big glob, just to make sure it connects and sticks to the volume. This is just showing that's the hot signal from the neck pickup. This is just to show at least one solder. Just soldering the pickup to the pickup selector here. Not an expert soldering, but having a proper soldering iron definitely helps. If it gets hot enough, it'll make it much easier. Make sure it fits nice and snug. Yep. And here's the wiring itself. I sort of compiled this graphic just to make it easier to see what I did. I had a little bit of help here and there. But yeah, that's it. Pretty straightforward. Got the knobs installed. Make sure they rotate fine. And that middle one is the coil tap. Okay, and here we go with some of the grounding. This is the ground wire that essentially connects to the trem claw on the back. This is the little hole to go through the body of the guitar. You pull it through. I went with let's call it pink wire, just because. Scored the edge there too, just to make sure the solder sticks. And then you just solder it. And there you go. And just showing a little bit of the output jack. And that's it. You just solder it up, pop it in, screw it in. Pretty straightforward. And actually physically installing the finished pickguard, you just screw all the holes in. It felt pretty snug putting it in, because I kept a little bit of excess wire just for having a little bit of slack for whatever reason. It fit fine. You just screw them all in. Okay, and here we go with the proper installation of the LSR nut. These were little shims that were included with the nut to raise it up a little bit, to prevent buzzing, especially on the first few frets. I definitely needed a little bit. But you just place those in. My treble side was a little bit higher than my bass side. And then you just pop it in and screw it in. It needed a size 0 Phillips precisely, or it would totally strip. I needed to get a screwdriver for it. Yeah, you just pop it in and screw it in. These adjustments here are to adjust the intonation and the action. This saddle movement here moves it back and forth. Helps primarily with intonation, and then raising the saddles just to help with intonation and action also. Takes a lot of tinkering with to get it perfect. And a little bit of truss rod technically too. But all very precise movements. And I decided to go with this not so common modification. Putting this styrofoam stuffing it into the trem springs to prevent them from vibrating, because mine was vibrating quite a bit. It would sympathetically ring too much, and I didn't want that. For some reason, middle C would just ring like crazy in the springs in the back. So this definitely worked. It dampens the springs so they don't ring out. Alright, yeah, just stuff them in, pop them on. And let's checking for vibration. They still ring a little bit, but definitely dampen them. Exactly how I was hoping. This is the hard spring inside of the trem arm. It just helps it from wobbling. And you screw in the trem arm. Finally install the strings. Thread them through and lock them up, tune them up. This shows these locking tuners I wasn't quite used to, but they're auto locking for the most part. You just tighten them and they have a little thing, but use a quarter there on the top to ensure that it's locked. There you go, and you tighten them up. And then adjust the height of the pickups. This can also affect intonation and action a bit. And tone, definitely. So this also takes a whole bunch of tinkering with to get it right. And here you have it. This is the final guitar. Finished product. Ended up in total taking me around like 3 months or so. Not straight, it was mostly weekends or something like that, but there you go. Totally customized Stratocaster. Of course it's not Fender, it's mine. Just immaculate intonation and tuning and tonal capabilities. It's just absolutely amazing. I've been waiting for 10 years to have something like this and had to make it myself. Beautiful. Yeah, and felt like filming the process, and here it is. Thanks for watching.